And here we go. Can we start? I'll start with myself. Lillian Joy, University of York. I'm an ed advisor and I look after quite a lot of the digital accessibility work in teaching and learning. Cordelia?
Hello, I'm Cordelia. I'm a maths PhD student, but I also do a lot of transcription, and Lillian recruited me. So yes, we see each other a lot and she gives me things to do.
Brilliant. Kerry?
Hello, Kerry from LSE. I work as a learning technologist in inclusive education, and we're just trying to get the mathematics and quantitative academics engaged in digital accessibility, and hoping to benefit from some of your expertise here to get things moving.
Brilliant. Ben?
Hi everyone, I'm Ben. I'm Head of Digital Accessibility at UCL, very similar to Kerry. I think I think everybody's kind of knows they need to be doing more with STEM in particular, but no one's ever really sure exactly where to start. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to share resources and divide and conquer. And hope if there's time, hopefully we can share with you our minimum standards that we've been working on. We've now got them on a website to kick that off with your help. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. George?
I'm George Rhodes. I'm the Digital Accessibility Lead for the University of Westminster. So very much the other side of the coin with Ben. We seem to do a lot in partnership these days, Westminster and UCL.
And Jenny?
Yeah, so I'm Jenny Hughes. I'm Digital Advisor at University of Sheffield, and I work predominantly with Faculty of Science. So have been doing some work on the accessibility in science subjects, which includes our maths department.
And Tucker?
Tucker McNeil. I'm from the University of Brighton, and I am a learning technologist there. I'm also working with science school, so that's kind of why I popped in here. And I'm really a big fan because I have no idea how to do any of this stuff in STEM, because I come from education and art, so I'm kind of always still getting to the ropes. But anyway, glad to be here.
And Luke? Hi, Luke.
Hello, sorry I was late. I got caught in the rain on the way over. But hi everyone, I'm Luke. I'm from the University of Southampton. I joined the group quite a while ago now. I'm not sure when we founded, but I think I was fairly close to the start of it. And yeah, just passionate about making STEM more accessible for all the students.
Yeah. And Shazia?
Hi, sorry I'm late as well. I've just come running from a different meeting and slightly frazzled. Yes, so I'm at the University of Glasgow. I work in the School of Maths and Stats. My background is actually more in math support, but I'm becoming more involved in the digital accessibility work within the school.
Brilliant. So we're just a friendly bunch. Kerry's new, so just kind of wanted to reassure her that there's no silly questions. We're all just trying to bring together everything that we can into one space, as Ben said. Just because some of us kind of thought, yeah, you know a bit, let's pile it all together so that we can inform everybody. So that's how this group started. So we have a kind of what I call a messy minutes document, which is in your calendar. And I've just been tidying it up a little bit with a very rough agenda. Don't worry about the future meetings. We literally dump things there whenever we have an idea. And if we're ever stuck for anything to talk about in a meeting, we can always grab something from the future meetings section. And I'm being organized here, Jenny. I'm proposing that the next meeting, there's a date in there that you can put in your diary already, instead of maybe giving people 3 days notice, which I've been known to do before. And understandably, not everyone can make every single meeting. and also, if for an entire term a Monday meeting is not going to work for you, I think we'll aim to do a Monday, then a Tuesday, then a, we'll aim to kind of rotate it through the week. Oh, Jill's here, yay. So today, one of the key things was to introduce new members, and I think Kerry's introduced herself now. Jill's from Brighton as well. She's one of our founding members as well as Jill. So yeah, I think I will just work my, and Jenny and I kind of take turns chairing. So I think, am I right, Jenny, that last time was so one of us does the minutes and then the other person goes through the agenda. But it doesn't have to be like this all the time. If anybody would like to chair a meeting, it's good professional development, if nothing else, and help us with, the GitHub and stimulating conversation on the Jisc mail, etc. Please just do say it's a shared ownership. Absolutely. This is for all of us, really. So the GitHub updates, I will share screen as well as drop something in the chat. So this is our GitHub site, especially for those who maybe haven't visited it recently. In answer to a question on the digital accessibility regulations, I actually came in here and thought, oh, in answer to Sandra's question, there is, I can link her to the accessibility resources by university, which also reminds me, if you have some resource, and Ben, this new resource that you have, if you have some resource and you've not added yourself here, please do get in touch with myself or Jenny, and we'll make sure you're added to the GitHub, and then you can, add your resources on here. So in the UK, this is one of the first ones that we're trying to kind of bring everything together as a kind of one-stop shop. There's nothing to say one person's advice is the top of the range advice. I think you do have to have a kind of showcase, because you'll find that lecturers, one person might be really into Chiron, and then another person's into LWARP, and another person wants to use something else, because we're humans, right? So we can't just dictate, but you'll find all the options here that you might help you to get started. So yeah, that's our GitHub. One of the most recent resources from last time that we had David Hodge, and he helped us to work out some CSS to make the R Markdown outputs a little bit more accessible. The buttons were a little bit light gray on white, and he's actually worked out the CSS so we can download it, and my tutors are now using a more accessible template thanks to him. So, the power of working together is absolutely fabulous. This site may take a little bit of working out if you've not used it before. So just know that the breadcrumb is pretty straightforward, and then just click on anything that's clickable and find your way around. And yeah, do introduce the resources to your own organization. Okay, and the glossary is very helpful. I still have to look at the glossary every now and then. Okay, so I don't think David can make it today, so there isn't a further update. But yeah, just to say, obviously, that he has added to the GitHub site now with that CSS if you want to download it for Gitbook, I think. And Telmo, Jenny, would you like to say a few things about Telmo? I've added the link in the document there.
Yes, that'd be really good. I was just replying to Jill about the things behind usernames and passwords, because ours all got put behind usernames and passwords, which is endlessly frustrating to me.
Oh yeah.
So I put a copy on GitHub. I'm not sure everybody would be necessarily
Let
comfortable
me
doing that, but
navigate to that. Yeah.
I put a copy of the Sheffield resources on there because I think it's quite important that people can actually see this, and we learned so much from other people's that to then keep it behind a login just felt incredibly selfish of us. So I did a sort of check with my manager where I said, I'm just going to do this, and he went, okay. But yeah, that's why there's a Sheffield section hosted on there. Anyway, the more exciting positive thing is Talmo. So Talmo is teaching and learning maths online, and they run lots of events over the course of the year, aimed really at academics who are teaching maths. Sometimes people in kind of maths support go, not so many digital learning technologists, but actually I'd highly recommend sharing Talmo around to your team because some of the stuff is really interesting that they do in general. But they put out a call for sessions, so I've been putting one in sort of on behalf of our group to say we would run a workshop, which will be a half-day workshop where we're looking at everything to do with kind of maths accessibility. And a couple of other people had put in sort of similar things. So Peter from Hallam had put in something very similar, so we've been doing it together. Last time we looked at some ideas and some suggestions for it, which I've then put into a bit of a theme around sort of 3 kind of sections of what we might look at on the day with people potentially presenting. Not all these people have all been confirmed or anything like that yet. They were all very much suggestions, but I just kind of wanted to share this with you to let you know about it, because the idea is it will be run as something which will say, you know, this is being run on behalf of the Jisc group, because it might get us some more members, tell people a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. And it's very much not that we're going in here as experts. It's going to be that because when I put in the proposal, I said, I'm not doing this as an expert, I'm doing this as somebody who can facilitate getting other useful people in the same room. And I know Lillian's going to do a bit beginning about student perspective, which again is we get the students to talk and tell people why this matters, because that's the whole reason we're doing it. So it's on there as a very rough thing. If you've got any comments, suggestions, questions, then please ask away. I'm going to send something out this week about when are people free in March, because they've asked that it's a Wednesday afternoon in March, but we can choose which one we want. So I'll send out a poll to check which work best for most people.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Next up is overleaf to HTML. And again, I think it's you, Jenny. You pinged people who the software developers of overleaf about accessibility, about output.
So just to try and get a reply about, because one of the easiest ways to increase accessibility would be actually like if overleaf just could compile to something accessible in the first place, that would be nice and easy. And also then maybe institutions that don't currently sign up to overleaf might, because I know we don't currently have an account with them, and if they did accessible maths, we might suddenly decide it was worthwhile. And I just thought it was interesting the response that I got from them, which if other people have similar kind of tools or products that you use, or academics in your institutions use, it's just worth sending them something, because they said a kind of, yeah, we're not really doing anything, but maybe in the future, was the kind of feeling I got from their response. So the more people keep asking publishers and suppliers for this kind of thing, the more chance we've got of it happening, because really we want it to be something that happens by default, not something where you have to do quite an involved process where you have to know a bit of markdown, or you have to be super good with LaTeX and be able to compile it on your own computer. So it just gives some options.
And I'm going to step back a bit and say this is what overleaf is, because thinking back through, we're guilty of, I think some of us have been in this group enough that we forget to explain some of the terminology. So because we have new members, we must always remember overleaf. So a lot of lecturers, Kerry, will create maths in a system called LaTeX. And normally it is, I think I can just log in with Google, hang on. Normally it is compiled on your desktop. You know, it's a piece of software that you kind of open up. It's an environment that you type in, and then you kind of almost compile it, you run it to generate, you know, a PDF usually. But there is an online version and it looks like this really. So I'll open up. So, you know, you can, if you like, type LaTeX code on one side, and then on the right hand side, you see the compiled PDF, if you like, version. And the irony is you can see it and you're kind of thinking, well, why isn't it exportable as web? It's on the web. Why can't I export it as web? It's on the web, but, you know, you'll notice you can't click and drag the text on the right. It's just a render. So normally you are only able to download a PDF and not like a HTML. So the question was, can't we type like this and output a HTML? And the answer was no, unfortunately. But yeah, we are going to be sharing our kind of overleaf template for things as well on our website. So just wanted to mention that. But thank you, Jenny, for that. And then next up, Jisc Mail, just to remind people again, if you're new and you're not aware, we have a Jisc Mail list. The only thing that's happening at the moment is that people are joining it. And there's not a lot of discussion on it yet. However, I think it's good that we already have that space, because then when we do have questions, we know we're asking people who have this specific interest. So the digital accessibility regulations Jisc Mail list is a bit broader than STEM, but then, you know, if anyone wants to just talk about STEM, they can do it in our Jisc Mail list. Okay, I think member updates. This is where we get the exciting stuff. I'm actually going to go to Ben and ask Ben to actually tell us a bit more about the minimum standards. Is that okay, Ben?
Yeah, of course. George is can help with this as well. He's a
Okay.
partner in crime. This came out. Our colleague at UCL, Dr. Jim Tyson, has had an interest in this area, and I think he was quite early on in discovering the using Pandoc as a way of rendering more accessible documents in this space. And when I arrived at UCL, I got talking to Jim, and we were like, this is all really, really, you know, all the stuff in STEM is really, really great. But I think what I certainly found, as somebody who is absolutely not a mathematician, I scraped a C at GCSE, and I was very grateful for that. So I think it gets quite complicated quite quickly, I find, and so what we were thinking about is, well, what's a kind of broad minimum standard that everybody could try and apply to, and then we scaffold from there, just to kind of get everybody on the same kind of basic level, and I mean really, really basic level. So we've been doing this in partnership with the Thomas Pocklington Trust, which is if you're not familiar, a charity primarily around young people in education with visual impairments and supporting them, and they do quite a lot of strategic work. So Jim put together an initial list of kind of minimum standards, and then Thomas Pocklington Trust organized a sort of a day, a focus group day with a group of young people who have recently been in education or are still in in STEM education, and we had their feedback to say, well, do these address the sorts of experiences that you had? And it was so interesting, because some things related to, it took us way beyond what we were expecting, where people were talking about frustrations in the way that documents print out, for example. It was kind of above and beyond the immediate digital accessibility stuff that we'd immediately gone there to talk about, but I think we got loads of extra value. So in order to kind of now be in a position where we can start thinking about sharing it with you to get some more feedback, which I think is that the stage we're at, we've put it on a website that we haven't really done any publicity around. I'm just frantically trying to get the link. I should have been prepared. I'm just gonna get you the link. Here we go. Oh no, this is it. Yeah, one sec. Unless you can beat me to it, George. Here we go. Accessible STEM introduction. All right. So in the chat, I will put the link to this thing. So this is very much a kind of starter for 10, and we you know, as we previously discussed when I came to one of the recent meetings of this group, is that we'd very much like your help now to break it, to build, you know, build upon it, with the proviso, of course, that it is meant to be mega basic, you know, that it's some core minimum standards that everybody can agree to, ideally not just in higher education, but we were thinking, why not, you know, further education, where there are particular issues that Thomas Pocklington Trust are particularly kind of keen to resolve. I think there's less immediate support for people with visual impairments in further education. So yeah, so I what we would really like is people to have a look at them and offer some feedback on them, and then we can kind of work on them together. And I guess the long-term ambition would be that people could hopefully agree to them as a reasonable set of things that we could all be doing at a base level, and then we build on it. But one of the things I think would be very helpful is that if we had that kind of minimum standard, obviously, you know, if academics move from UCL to Imperial to Westminster, that they're already familiar with some of the basic ground rules, you know, and some of the vocabulary. And I think if we've got minimum standards, we can write minimum standards guidance, which again means we don't have to recreate the wheel, which I think this group's doing brilliantly in terms of centralizing some of that resource and the heavy lifting that colleagues are doing locally. Why don't we kind of get really good at crowdsourcing that as a community, and then we've only got one set of guidance to update rather than 100 different bits for all of our institutions. I think we're so much stronger taking this forward together. George, did I give that a fair crack? Is there anything I've missed?
I think so. There's a couple of bits I think I want to say. Probably
Okay.
good to give a little bit of background on what Make Things Accessible is, because I think when I saw the GitHub a second ago, I was like, oh, we're both doing the same kind of thing. You know, collating shared resources, putting it in one place, as Ben's just said. You go from one place to another, great, it's exactly the same rules wherever we go. One of the things, because I've already taken a copy of the link for the GitHub, is I'll be adding those resources straight into the references in the Make Things Accessible stuff, because you've clearly gone to a completely different level compared to where we're at with the very basic STEM guidance stuff. But yeah, just to give a little bit of background on why we started off the Make Things Accessible bit. Basically, like this, we started talking to several other universities, mainly around the London area, but then several others that Ben and I know through the mailing list and other places. And unsurprisingly, and this won't be a story that's unheard of for you, I'm sure, we all realised, oh, we have exactly the same need for the same bits of guidance for staff, and you know, whether that's academics or professional services staff or whoever else. And many of us had different areas of expertise. So we thought, okay, great. How do we go about sharing that information or getting to a single point of standards, and how do we get to it in a way that doesn't have some of our upper management getting a bit funny about things because they're owning a website or a shared area or something that all of these other competing, supposedly, universities are making use of. So we had a little bit of a chat about it, and as it turns out, nobody owns the domain for makethingsaccessible.com, or nobody did, until I personally bought the domain for makethingsaccessible.com. So I own it. So none of the universities will ever lay claim, and we will have ownership issues. I'm just going to host the domain from now until I die, and we'll put something in my will to make sure that it continues further on. But yeah, so we've put together this thing. It's built on the same what is it called, Netlify. One of my brilliant team, Darren, he's put it together. It's the same underlying platform. It's all on a public Git repo anyway. It's the same underlying stuff that the gov.uk design system is all hosted on. So we put the website together with the aim that we put all of our resources up there, and when we actually find time to write any useful guidance, we do try to then get it up on the platform. But it is much more broad than just the STEM stuff. So I've been writing things about enforcement procedures and the regulations, and I'm doing a big one on how to write an accessibility statement at the moment, and we're putting templates and things up and anything and everything else we can do, so that people stop asking me if I have some answers for procurement, and I can just go to makethingsaccessible.com and never ask me again on how to be mean to suppliers who don't know what they're talking about. Just go and look it up on the website. Clearly trying to make myself completely redundant by the end of this, but there we go. Yeah, sorry, bit of a background there. I thought it would be good to know. We are still in the early stages, so we only got it up kind of last month, and then now we are in the process of writing more things, and we're going to be doing that forever, I can imagine. So if anyone does want to contribute, please feel free. We'll add you on, put your name there, we'll get your stuff up, or if you've got stuff that you think we should be directing people to, I don't have to be the host for everything in existence. I'd much rather point off to other people's good resources if they already exist somewhere. Yeah, so there we go. Seems we're all on the same idea of sharing the good practice guidance.
That's brilliant. It looks very, very usable. I think one thing we'll have to discuss going forward is we don't want to, like you say, do we take everything that's missing from your site and stick it on which way round, or do we do it both? Because actually people find information from different sources. So do we actually try and make sure we keep both sites up to date, and then make sure that we, make people aware of the other site? Because more information sometimes.
Yeah, I'm always happy to just link both ways. You've got all of this stuff set up in GitHub already. At no point would I go, oh, you should, unless you really, really wanted to, please feel free to host it on Make Things Accessible, but I'm not going to force anybody. It's more stuff for us to take care of. And if you've got things that you're in control of, then I'm more than happy to use it as a landing point for people. And then I can link off to someone's Git repo here, somebody else's guidance somewhere else. It's all fine. I don't think we'll ever end up with just one website which has all the answers to everything hosted on it.
Absolutely. And I think what's been helpful is
sorry, Lynn, I was going to say the GitHub is definitely kind of maths resources. So I think there's room for both. I mean, I think the worst thing we could do would be to have two versions of the same thing. So as long as we're signposting and not having any kind of version controls issue, I don't think Jim, or I don't think Jim would mind where we ultimately end up hosting it, as long as there are clear links between the two, I guess. It was just, we thought we'd put it on there to kind of test it out, and then to in order that we can start getting some initial feedback. I mean, I think as you see, it's quite humble in its ambitions. It's really quite simplistic in certain places. So I think we might need a bit more nuance in there, which is of course we thought we'd bring it at this point so that we can sort of start filling that in with kind of expert help from the community. So it is definitely a serving suggestion rather than anything like the finished article.
Yeah, please do let us have your GitHub, you know, so that you can contribute to the LI maths one as well. That would be absolutely fabulous. And yes, this is something to promote. I've minuted it, something to promote within our own organizations, because you're quite right. Different people like to look at things in different ways. And although they may have seen the same advice at the University of York, they might come to yours and go, oh, that makes so much sense, you know. So you never know what triggers someone's willingness to engage. So I absolutely think you're right. You know, someone who's coming at the maths who is from biology or medicine is maybe going to find your resource speaks to them a lot more. So thank you very much for creating it. I think all of us are quite keen to kind of have a look through the resource. It's absolutely fabulous. So we've still got 20 minutes now. Normally we do kind of go around and see if other members have other things to report. I know we do at York, but before we begin, because we seem to report every meeting. Luke, is there anything you'd like to contribute from Southampton?
Sure. So at Southampton, we've gone down the route of installing Chiron.
Oh.
The way that we've started looking at it is because obviously everyone's LaTeX environments are quite bespoke from computer to computer. We actually want to install Chiron in Docker containers, so then people can access it through that way. So we can manage this whole sort of environment, and everyone else can then add into their own profiles in Docker how they like their LaTeX. But we're working with Christian Lawson Perfect with that at the moment. We did run into a few roadblocks in that we started sort of with the implementation, and there was a few bugs in the Chiron code. So Christian's currently working on that, and the software engineer that was working on that in Southampton has recently just left the university. So we're kind of, yeah, I know it's always the way. I always get part through projects and then go. But yeah, that's probably the major thing for accessible STEM. Matthew Deeprose and I are looking at trying to bring this up with Blackboard, probably at more of a senior level than our sort of account managers, because I'm sure you've seen as well, Lillian, it's the STEM is on our roadmap. It's like, that's fantastic, but it's been on your roadmap at 6 months plus for well over a year. So like, where are you with it? And we want to sort of know if we can start provisioning our support for that coming in, because once that does come in, that's going to hopefully solve quite a few of our issues with STEM content being uploaded, maybe not like pure mathematics, but certainly with math content being used across in other subject areas, it should be useful. And I got married on the 1st of October, and that's an update. Luke, done.
That's fabulous. Oh, I love good news like that. That's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tucker and Jill, any updates from Brighton?
Just unmuting to say we don't have any of those good news bits that Luke had. But I would be really interested, and Tucker even more so, to hear how Luke gets on talking to Blackboard about any accessibility improvements for STEM. I haven't got anything exciting to offer. Tucker, do you? No, we're a bit thin on the ground for STEM support, but we are hoping that one of the team, we've got a lot of changes in our learning technology team, and hopefully somebody will be given more responsibility for STEM math support in the future. It's kind of like a vacant post at the moment that Tucker and I are keeping a watchful eye on, but not hands-on involved with those departments. Lillian, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Kerry, would you like to just give us a little bit of a sense of where you're at LSE?
I would say we're probably at the beginning. So Lillian's actually come in to talk to some of our staff, and Cordelia, and one of your student interns, aren't you?
Yeah.
At LSE next week to hopefully engage. We have a problem with engaging our academic staff, and we're trying to get them more engaged in general. But one thing you might be interested in is, does anybody use UJ Panorama with Moodle? Because I know most people are using Blackboard Ally as an accessibility tool. So they've started to develop some alternative formats for mathematical content. It's really, really basic at the moment, but it'd be interesting to see where that goes. That's something that we need to test with some mathematicians, but so far it just looks like sort of text to speech and LaTeX, but it's not, it's something that looks quite simplistic, so we need to explore it a bit more, but at least they're looking at it. Their software developers are starting to explore that. But Lillian, we're really looking forward to you coming in to speak to us next week, and hopefully we can get more people engaged, and we'd like to work with some students as well. I think that's a really great approach to get them testing different tools that you've suggested. And some of them look really interesting.
You're struggling to spell it. It's UJ, yeah, YUJA, isn't it? It's almost like it's a pity Gavin wasn't here from Brickfield. He normally attends and gives us a perspective from a Moodle point of view. Yes, that's it, UJ Panorama. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're looking forward to having a chat. Quite often, I think we'll find that people are more willing to listen if you've got someone from outside the university. Like nobody in York listens. No, I think they do a little bit, don't they, Cordelia? I think they do, but it's taken years, right? So just don't give up. You know, year one, I had one lecturer in computer science who had picked up the information I gave them from Jim Tyson and thought, I'll try this. And he was the first thread, if you like, you know, someone internal who could talk techie with the other people who were using LaTeX, which I had no idea what that was about. Still don't, to be fair. But yeah, so you just have to start somewhere. I think start with the one. All you can do is start with one person. That's all you can do, and then just keep at it. And then, from my perspective, someone really has to start thinking about bringing in the technologies that make it easier to create. So, like what Luke was doing with Chiron, you know, you're trying to set up the environment so that people can do this thing that you're telling them to do. Because if the environment, if the environment doesn't allow them to make accessible maths or allow the student to, you know, get alternative formats, then you're always going to be, it's an uphill battle, isn't it? It's a Sheffield battle, isn't it, Jenny? Uphill all the way. And I love that idea, Jenny. Bring a friend from either another university or someone at the uni who maybe needs converting. I think that's a really nice approach as well. And if you feel like, hey, bringing someone from the maths department or whatever to this meeting might help, then I think, yeah, why not? I think it works. Oh, no, I don't think any of us here would dare say we're experts, right? Maybe George is the only one who could possibly kind of.
not on maths.
on accessibility, yeah.
Oh,
so,
I don't know about that either. Maybe the regulations in particular. I seem to be the most obsessive about that, but
Cordelia is a PhD math student, so we'll rely on her. No one. I think and please everyone join in at this point. It's true to say that the more you try to understand about accessibility and maths, the more you realize you don't know. But that's true of anything that you're trying to understand, right? And if that's the case, then you're on the right track. If someone says they know it all, can't be true, I don't think. Bearing in mind an organization has so many people developing maths accessibility in so many different ways as well. So there's that. So for us here at the University of York, and again, I have to say, like I say, we've been at this for more than 4 years now, that we're in a position where things are building on each other and accelerating a little bit more. So the growth is pushing out sideways as well as further forward, which I'm really pleased about. So working with students has been crucial for that, because they're the ones who kind of go and persuade the lecturers that, you know, I need this and here's something you can do. Look, it's quite easy because even I can do it and I don't know LaTeX, you know, so there's all kinds of convincing arguments. So we ran a webinar on the 7th of November. It was meant to be internal, which is why, sorry, Kerry, it kind of started where it did. And it was meant to bring together all the lecturers who had participated in the summer projects with the interns. So, and a chance for the interns to do some professional development by presenting on the thing that they'd done. So each intern showed the workflow that they were working on to convert materials into more accessible formats for the lecturers, and the guides that they made. Oh, this has been a really productive summer for us. So we've not yet finished updating our website, which I will just screen share quickly. We've got our accessible documents website, which we've kind of quietly hosted on Xerti for a while, but Cordelia and I did a very aggressive organization and declutter, I think. So the headings along the top have slightly changed. We've put all the digital formats into one tab, and then we brought our primer back in because we felt like the organization of this still, I was still referring to it, Cordelia was still referring to it. So we kind of thought it's still really useful. So yeah, we, you know, again, we invite people to come and look at our story. No one university can say, just take our story and put it into yours and you'll be fine. I think you have to find your own way, unfortunately. But hopefully some of the ideas here might be useful. So this summer we did a lot more on charts, graphs, and images. And we thought it might be a nice idea. We've used a lot of the advice from NWEA, from Matt Deeprose, from Hugh Alexander, all these good people. And we've kind of tried to pull it together into a checklist. But also, as we were dealing with our own charts, graphs, and images, we created, if you like, a little store for ourselves. So the next time I have a lecturer that goes, I have an Argand diagram, whatever that is, Cordelia, I've got no idea. Looks like that apparently. Then I can kind of say, oh, if you want to describe it, you know, here's an example of how you would describe it. And if you want to make something like that digital, because a lot of these diagrams, the tutors had hand drawn and handed it to their students online. Worse still, they were hand drawn on lined paper, you know, like on literally on ruled paper like that. Oh God, like that. They didn't even draw it on white paper. They drew it on exercise paper. So then that makes it even harder for students to kind of see some of the drawings in high contrast, etc. So we've included that, we've put in alt text, we have given a suggestion for how to describe the diagram, and then we've provided a link to the actual GeoGebra site where we've created the diagram, because the source information is always going to arguably be more accessible to people. So for instance, this diagram is so much clearer than something in the PDF, which has the tiny text, you know? So that was our rationale. So we've got this store that we created in Overleaf and output it to PDF. And we checked it on LI to make sure, didn't we, Cordelia? Over and over. It's like, why isn't it showing 100%? So we just kept going with our own accessibility advice until we managed to get everything tagged properly. So we've got a link. If you do have an Overleaf account, feel free to come and, you know, grab it and adapt it as you want. And our students found MathChar, which is a fabulous tool for grabbing hand drawing images quickly and then getting the LaTeX out from it, which then the lecturers can insert into their TICS format on LaTeX. So it's little obscure things like that that I would never have found, and which may feel like that's not very accessible, but it starts with digitizing things from hand drawing things to digital, because that gives you a chance to then make it clearer for students who might have to screen magnify. So not forgetting students who have to do that, as well as making sure that it's as machine readable as possible. So that's what we've been up to. And the other thing that Cordelia is busy with now, I would say, is measuring the impact. Because we can hire student interns and do stuff forever, right? But how do you know it's making a difference to students? So I can tell you that lots more lecturers are making accessible documents, but we also know that students are still that perpetual problem of, do they know what to do with an accessible document? So we're still at that stage of working with the lecturers to tell students about the formats and to let them say, you can download the PDF, but you may want to download, you know, this HTML file as well, because, and telling them why. And then Cordelia and I are running things like Equasio workshops to allow the students to help themselves. If they get presented with something that's hand-drawn, they can learn to digitize some of the math themselves and have it read back out to them, etc. Is there anything else I've missed out, Cordelia?
I think that's everything.
Okay, so Luke says, I should mention that Matt Deeprose is presenting at TechShare Pro tomorrow. Yes, good. I'm going to be, is that the AbilityNet one, Luke? Yeah, 3 days. Yeah, I'm at that, because there is an accessibility community one. Techability are also running something in London or something. Yeah, so there are 2 accessibility related conferences at the same time. So I'll be at the TechShare Pro ones as well. And then, yes, thanks for that link, free stream only ticket there. Let's add it to our minutes, because if anyone reads it in the next day or 2, they might still be able to TechShare Pro. Brilliant. So is there anything in particular before we round up? I think I get a lot just from hearing what other people are doing, especially the progress, you know, what Luke's doing, what Ben's doing, all the little kind of we're just chivying away at suppliers, at, you know, our own staff, and helping, trying to find ways to help our students. So I think all that is brilliant, to feel like we're not just working on our own, which is great. But is there anything that's listed in the future meetings section, or anything that you would like to have as a theme for our next meeting? You know, if there's anybody we can invite to these meetings, that's always useful as well. And apologies if you can hear my husband having his meeting right outside the hall, like he's got his own office. Bring an academic session would be a nice idea. I like that very much. I like that very much. That's going into bring an academic idea. I think that's fabulous. But do we want to try and line up just one or two people, or do we want to kind of make it a free-for-all? Will they be disappointed if they turn up and then we run out of time for them to do their show and tell? But I like the idea very much. Maybe the next one in January, it's not so much the promise of a show and tell, but just aim to bring an academic along. How about that? We'll start with that. I would say I've been lucky that I've got Cordelia already, because she runs the seminars with the math students, but she's also a transcriber at the university. So if not an academic, connect with a transcriber or a student who actually uses more accessible materials. Yeah, just, you know, if we all brought one person, it would really enrich the story, wouldn't it? And then we could focus on hearing all these other people's stories at the next session. I love that. Bring an academic / transcriber / student. Okay, for the next one. Love it. Love it, love it. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. We will post this on our YouTube channel, and Jenny and I will update the minutes on the GitHub site. And thank you so very much, everybody, for your contributions today.